Greetings, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. It's time again for another episode of Treknicity Live. I'm your host, Lars de Scenza, coming to you from somewhere out in subspace, or the cosmos, or maybe near Los Angeles. This is the show where I talk about Star Trek and whatever I think about Star Trek and whatever topic I talk about, because no topic in Treknicity is taboo. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about something that admittedly gets me fired up whenever I do mention it or read about it or see activity about it, and that is the fan production of Axanar. So this is going to be a little bit vehement because I have very strong feelings about how everything went down and whatnot, but rest assured I will be as respectful as possible, given that, there are definitely two sides to every story. So, for those of you who are not familiar with Axanar, Axanar was a fan production that started out about three years ago, and it was thought up by Alec Peters. Now, there are a lot of other people who are involved, and I'm not going to go into everybody's name right now, simply because I just want to kind of keep this as a relatively informal discussion about my feelings on the matter, not necessarily the ins and outs of it. And certainly I'm not going to take any particular side of anybody's in this discussion. I'm just going to tell you what I think and what I've seen and what I feel. So, again, this was a fan production that was dreamt up by Alec Peters. Now, I understand that the script idea had happened many years beforehand. And that being said, on paper, it was fantastic. I can't tell you how excited I got about this production. We backed the original Kickstarter, and they raised way more money than they anticipated raising to do it was envisioned as a full length feature, and it had a lot of sci-fi alumni attached to it. J.G. Hertzler, Richard Hatch, Tony Todd, and the thing is that, it whipped the Star Trek fans of all kinds into a frenzy because it was such a radical idea. It was a telling of a story that had only been roughly touched on in the original series when the Enterprise visits a mental health institution and like a psychiatric hospital, and we're introduced to the character of Garth Vizar. So, what had happened is the idea behind Axanar itself was that they were going to tell the story of how Garth was instrumental in the 4 Years' War, which is the big war, the first big war between the Federation and the Klingon Empire, and how the Federation basically came into its own as a scrappy little fighter, and how they were able to turn the tide of a war that was going so badly for them. So, as they raised money, they were sharing the ideas of how this all came together, and they were keeping the fans informed. And as a way to say thank you to the backers, we ended up with a short little 20-minute short movie called A Prelude to Axanar, which was stylized as a docudrama from Memory Alpha about how the 4 Years' War played out, and it was interview style by some of the key players. That being said, again, for what they had budget wise, it was an incredible short film. I still keep a copy of it and watch it every so often because of how well it was done. That being said, of course, there were some things going on in the background that kind of soured it for some people who were working on the production. And then there was more crowdfunding. There was more people getting involved. There were more things going on. There was this idea that that some of the money would be taken and it would be used to build Ares Studios in up in Valencia, California, and a place that I actually had the privilege of visiting at one point, and I'll get to that here in just a moment. Excuse me. That being said, and I know I say that a lot, what we end up having is the more money that rolled in, the more there was anticipation and expectation that the feature film would be forthcoming fairly soon, and there were delays. I mean, of course, they went into pre-production and things happen. And if anybody who was or is still involved in Axanar is watching this right now, I will apologize that I understand that some of my facts are a little bit on the light side, simply because I watched it as from an armchair perspective as everything played out. But I will try to be as accurate as possible, and I welcome you. I welcome you to contact me and help me out with with getting all this information together. But that means, so let's get back on topic here. What happened is there was some disagreement between CBS and Paramount with Alec Peters in the way that the Axanar project was being ported out there. And the one golden rule that Paramount and CBS have had over the years is that you can't make money off of Star Trek. Nothing you do can make money off of Star Trek. Not if you're not a licensed creator of if you're not licensed to create content for that brand, you cannot make money. You can do any number of fan things, but you can't make a cent. You can spend as much money as you want, you just can't make a cent. Well, there was some discussions. To my knowledge, there was some conversation between Alec and the IP holders of Star Trek, and they basically said, "Look, dude, you need to stop what you're doing, okay?" And however it played out, it was obvious that apparently that did not stop. And with that being the case, they did the one thing that they felt that they had to do, and they sued the production. A lot of it came down to mostly it was IP based on things like Vulcan language and things that matter. But at the end of the day, it ground everything to a halt. And through some discovery during the lawsuit, first of all, let me go back a second. I want to let you know that when that lawsuit was announced, I was very, very much in support of Axanar. Red Shirt Geeks as a group was behind Axanar. We were following with the hashtag We Stand with Axanar, very vocal about supporting. So don't think that we just kind of you got sued. Well, we're gonna jump ship and leave you to the sharks. It wasn't that at all. It came down that as things started to come out, there was a very public falling out. Terry McIntosh, who was responsible for a lot of the technical side, especially the website and the online store and what's that, he became very vocal about things that he was not happy with. There were other reports that there were issues with the actors not being compensated correctly, and that it just started to pile on. And next thing you know, we've got people are questioning, hey, you got a studio that you're gonna use for stuff other than an Axanar, and you built that with crowdfunding money? I don't know if I like that so much. So that became a point of contention. There was also a very public announcement by J.J. Abrams I believe prior to the release of Star Trek Beyond, that they were going to end the lawsuit. And I'll tell you what, at that point, I was actually still pretty I was like, oh, that's cool. Okay, they're going to drop the lawsuit and you're going to be out of it. They can get on with their production. They can put all this behind them and be done with it, and we can get what we wanted, because what we wanted in the end as fans was we wanted more Trek, and we wanted it in the style that we were used to. We were some of us were still pretty bitter about the whole Kelvin timeline movies, the Abrams versus some people call it. So they wanted that good old fashioned classic feel Star Trek, the stuff that we'd seen shown in the prelude to Axanar short movie, and also seen the work of Tobias Richter, who, holy cow, man, that dude is fantastic. So they said, oh, we're just gonna get rid of the lawsuit. Well, that didn't happen. So what happens is more information starts to come out, and through court documents that were made public. To my knowledge, there was some impropriety with crowd funds that was alleged, and it there was no information contrary to it. There was nothing to say. There was no dispute even to my knowledge. So you can see what's going on here. You have people who are just like, they got the blinders on. They're like this. They're just absolutely like this. And they're just saying no. Alec Peters and crew have done nothing wrong. They have done exactly as they said they would do. They just they couldn't help getting sued. Well, what we have now as a result of it is we have. They ended up settling the suit, and part of that, CBS and Paramount instigated new rules for fan productions, and it basically pared them down to the point where you can't have anything that is going to be of the quality of what Axanar would have been had it gone to plan. And those new rules include, of course, the original no making money off of it. Now you're limited to 2 15-minute episodes that cannot be connected to it or be part of a larger story. You can't use professional film crews. You can't use actors who have appeared in any canon Star Trek series or movie. It basically hobbled the Star Trek fan industry at its knees. It just completely smacked in the knee and toppled it. Now, I want to just take a step back here just a little bit again. I mentioned earlier that I had the privilege of going up to Aries Studios when it was still based in Valencia. It is now moved to Georgia because, of course, the film industry is much cheaper in Georgia, and it's very burgeoning down there. So people are kind of going there to see, hey, we're going to go off and make it down here. Look, to be honest with you, before everything came out, if they turned around right as they were building everything, and they said, "Look, guys, this is really expensive. We're gonna go to Georgia because it's cheaper," and I'd be like, "Yeah, go, man. Just save a few bucks and rock and roll." But we went up. A friend of mine and I were invited to come up to the studios there. We walked around. It was mostly empty. I believe parts of a incomplete and deconstructed bridge were there, and we took some photos, and we got sort of escorted around by Alec himself, and we got to see the offices, and we got to see the some of the uniforms that were that had been on display inside the studio. So, and we were treated very well. We were we hung out, we talked Trek, we talked business, and the whole thing is that, we felt we were made to feel very welcome, okay? And the only thing that was asked from us is that we write about our experience, and we did. I did at the time, and it was pleasant. However, seeing a lot of the exchanges that go on between people who were involved or people who were backers and felt that they weren't, that their money was misappropriated and we didn't get what we were promised. I mean, as it is, we're still not going to get what we were promised because we were promised a feature film. And, there was some issue with, there were people wanting refunds, and some people got refunds without any trouble, and some people got told, bugger off, you're not getting a dime out of us. So that, is where the lines start to get drawn very clearly. So now to be honest with you, I'm not that vehement about Axanar. I'm just not a supporter of it anymore. I don't care. At this point, they got my money. I don't care if anything gets made because it soured me. In fact, it soured me to the point where between that and the movies, the Abramverse, Kelvin Timeline movies, I was just about like done. I don't give a shit about Star Trek. I'm sorry, just done. However, I mentioned my feelings once about things in the Axanar fan group, and I wasn't even being disrespectful. I was just kind of trying to give a logical, respectful point of view on it, and the response was immediately I was kicked out of the group and banned. And this happens way more than you might think. So now you have people on both sides of the aisle arguing, and some people are saying, well, you're just a bunch of haters. Well, no, we're not hating on the project. We were all behind the project. Hell, if the project could go the way it was intended to, right now, I'm pretty sure that most of us would still be behind it. But there's a group on Facebook called Axamonitor, and that is what is referred to colloquially as Hater Central. And I am part of that group. I don't chime in all that often. I read a lot of it because I don't have a whole lot to say about it anymore. Because it comes across like a bicker fest. We're just arguing. You go on there to have. People are just having arguments for the sake of having arguments now, or they're just taking stabs at each other because they can. They can take cheap shots and say screw it. We can do whatever. We can just say screw it. We're gonna take whatever cheap shot we can get and have a blast. That being, with that being the case as well, look, I love talking to some people on both sides of it. There's a Facebook friend of mine who vehemently supports Alec and everything that he has done in this, this entire fiasco, and said no, he's done nothing wrong, and it's all CBS and Paramount. It's all them. He never did anything to warrant this. Well, I beg to differ, but that doesn't mean that he's not my friend and I don't talk to him. He just has a different opinion. With the people in the Axamonitor group, they're angry. They're angry because they feel like they've been duped. And then on top of it, they feel like they were insulted after they were duped. And that, unfortunately, is never a good thing. People just aren't very forgiving when it comes to that sort of stuff. So, my official opinion is that it was a good idea gone bad. It was a good situation gone very bad. I like the fact that somebody had a lot of drive and determination to make a really high quality Star Trek fan production. I was amazed with it. I mean, again, I mentioned earlier in this episode that I still have the download that came with, as a perk of backing the Kickstarter campaign, and I watch it because I love it. Please, if you have any opinions on it, don't be afraid to share them with me. Be as frank as you want. Just don't be outright disrespectful, because that gets nowhere. If you don't have arguments or discussions and debates based in logic, then you're doing nothing but, to use it to turn a phrase, you're pissing up a rope. Or as I would often say, and I apologize, is a little crude, but having arguments like this is like peeing over an electric fence. You know, it might seem like pretty cool at the time, but in the end, you're just going to blow your willy off. So, okay. That's my final thought on it. You know, I don't want anything to do with the production anymore. I don't particularly follow. I don't read any of the blog updates or anything like that. I just, you know, as soon as I see it, I flick it away and it's just done. You know, I hope that they are successful in getting accomplished what they are able to get accomplished under the new rules. In the meantime, I would just want this mess to be over with and people can just go back to their daily lives. If you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to leave me a comment on this video or any of my other videos. This is the part where I plug everything to do with Red Shirt Geeks because that's what I do. If you like this video, I'm going to keep trying to do this at least every weekday for the time being. If you like it, please click the like down here and subscribe to us as well, and then click the little bell to get a notification so that you know when we put out a video or I go live or something like that, because we always got new stuff coming out and everything. So please let us know, you know, what you think. And in the meantime, my friends, rock out with your Spock out. See you next time, folks.